And we put it up there for you to download it for free. Okay, it's called IRS Attack Handbook. Download it for free. And I know one of the biggest thing they say in there, you know how to identify you? They say in there that the way they identify you is by you sending to the IRS, okay, this is quote, about non-filers. They say, these protesters are the most difficult to identify since they do not readily identify themselves by sending in protest letters or unacceptable returns. Do you hear that? You send them what they consider a protest letter or unacceptable return. 1040NR, 1040X I don't like, or zero return, or you know that form from the website of this guy you pulled out to send in to get your money back and all that. Any of that to them, it's a unacceptable return or protest letter. You don't write your objection to the IRS, and you cannot default, and you want to send them a default or this or that. They ignore that. Okay, what you should do if you want to have a problem with them is do what We the People Foundation shares with you. Send that material to your congressmen, to your senators. They're the ones who are responsible for this whole mess. IRS will tell you, don't ask us, ask them. By law, IRS only is there to enforce the law, not to answer questions. If they were to answer this question, they get nothing done all day long. You see what I'm saying? By law, the courts cannot answer you. There's a federal law that says the courts cannot answer your tax questions. So ask your congressmen, senators. You're doing a double favor. You're putting pressure on your public servants to do the right thing and live up by the oath to uphold the Constitution, as well as giving yourself a great reliance program that you rely on the government itself. Is the tape ready at the back? Give me a hand when you guys do have it. Okay? It's a very, very simple thing that I tell you, until I got this book, I used to do all kind of responses to the IRS. I thought I could challenge them and question them and this and that. I didn't realize, whoa. You don't want to do none of those things except when they invite you to go to a tax court by giving you what's called the notice of deficiency, collection due process hearings, or equivalent process of a state giving a chance to have a hearing and challenge them. Okay. Other than that, you're saying, hi, I'm one of those guys that you're trying to identify and nail. And I did one of those myself back in 1993. I did a 1040 NR, you know, because that's what I thought was the thing to do. My friends told me that's what to do. And that prompted them to look into me and try to mess with me. Okay? So what we're trying to do is to have you learn from our mistakes so you can be successful. Okay? And you know, that's the whole idea. I mean, I tell you, this is why I think it's important in America that we have more respect for our elders, and we don't as a nation. In Iran, where I came from, someone who is 60, 70 years old, we look to them with respect like, let me learn something from this guy, because he's been around the block. In America, it's not like that, unfortunately. So when I got involved in the freedom movement, I'm looking to see, if this guy knows some good new stuff, I'll learn from him and do them, you know, and apply it and teach it. Okay, our next speaker comes from Washington State. He started in the freedom movement by somebody who was a little bit of wacko, apparently calling him and bugging him and asking him to look up something. And he, being curious enough, even though the guy was a wacko, looked it up. His research led him to Free Enterprise Society, became a member of them, led him to become a Freedom Law School student, and then further to becoming a web host of Joe Bannister, which he, as his contribution to the movement, that's one of the things he does, no charge. And he's been involved with Libertarian Party for many years, John Birch Society, exposing a New World Order and the loss of our rights. He's, with his friends, gotten together and confronted congressmen and public officials about their oath to uphold the Constitution. A very effective and intelligent and organized, freedom fighter who brought himself from poverty to the American dream, and he decided to give something back and further put his money where his mouth is, put over $10,000 of his own hardcore money to beat an incumbent in a city election and beat him with better than 60% vote. He has a lot to tell us about how we can start getting our freedoms back right there at the local level. Please help me give a warm hand of welcome to Mr. Bruce White.
Thank you, Payman. Thank you, Payman. I'm sure I'm going to be giving a different kind of a speech than you've been hearing all of this weekend. The first thing I'm going to let you know is that I am going to prove to you today that even someone with poor public speaking skills can get elected to office. As Payman noted, I did run against an incumbent in the city of Kent, where I'm from. City of Kent, just as for some background, is the 6th largest city in the state of Washington. We have approximately 90,000 residents. So to campaign in a city that size takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. I did devote a lot of my life for the last year to winning that election, and it ultimately did bear fruit. In fact, I ended up obviously working a little too hard since I won by such a wide margin. But anyway, Payman asked me to come here today to talk a little about what it takes to run for local office, and now that I have won, what have I been able to accomplish, and what could you expect to accomplish if you were to run and win yourself? Let me just get started. I guess the number one piece of advice that I could give would be to start early and decide, for example, nonpartisan races in Washington State, and I do believe in California, are held on odd-numbered years. So if you were interested in running for office in 2003, now is the time to start. Let's see. I ran 2 years ago. I ran in 1999. It was a situation where a friend of mine goaded me into running, drugged me down to the election department on the last day of filing week, and we both signed up to run. I had no clue as to who any of the incumbents were. I just knew that there were 2 people who had no opponents, and that it seemed un-American that they should win by default, so I picked one of them to run against. As it turned out, that person was the council president, and was quite a popular one at that. But I managed my way through that election campaign, got about 36% of the vote. But along the way, I learned a few things about running for office, and mostly by making a lot of mistakes. So again, just going back to my advice for running for office, the first thing would be to start early. Go to the meetings. Go to them all. Because unless you're going to these meetings, you don't know what it is that the people that you could potentially be running against stand for. For example, in late 1999, the gentleman that I ultimately ran against was in an argument with a citizen during the public comment period, where he quite brazenly told the public that, after all, taxes are free money. And so I made a note of that, and was able to use it quite extensively in my campaign to hit him over the head with. That's just one example of why it's important to pay attention. If you can't go, at least watch them on television. I also plugged myself into the local grassroots politics groups. I am a Libertarian. I've been a member of the Libertarian Party since 1996. But I see I'm not alone. But you know, in my area, there are in my city, there's only 4 Libertarian members, of which I am one. So so I went and got involved in the local Republican group. Just so you know, most people who are in the Republican Party, at least in my area, are Libertarians. They just don't know it. And so, you know, we get along fine. There are some things that we have discussions over, mostly things having to do with things that their guy is doing that they are agreeing with, but if the guy on the other side of the aisle were doing the same thing, they'd have a big problem with it. So we have some discussions about that. Another thing that I wish I had done that would have helped me in my campaign would be to join a service club. One of the things that comes up on a lot of the questionnaires that you get as a candidate are, what are the community service things that you have done in your community? You know, I've been an activist in, you know, running, you know, helping anti-tax initiatives that have been on the ballot and helping candidates that I agreed with on their campaigns. But, for example, in Washington State, there's an organization called the Municipal League that rates candidates. And they interview candidates and then give ratings of not qualified to outstanding. And they rated me average because, no, they rated me adequate, I'm sorry, because as they told me, I would have been very good had I coached a Little League team. I didn't quite see the correlation there between coaching Little League and being qualified to be in office, but it was important to them, and that gets printed in the newspapers. And I would imagine that there are similar organizations down here. In terms of finding supporters in the area, one of the most excellent ways to find people that will support you and work on your campaign is to read the newspaper, the letters to the editor section. For 2 years, I clipped out letters to the editor that I agreed with, then matched up the letter writers with the voters database, and then when I went out to doorbell, I would introduce myself and then sort of casually say, you know, John Smith, aren't you the person that wrote the letter to the editor about such and such about, you know, 5 months ago? And talk about bowling somebody over and impressing the heck out of them. You know, and that creates that rapport that is so difficult to get when you're a stranger at somebody's door. And it just gives you a shoe-in to be able to you know, talk about other issues and get them on your side and get them to be a supporter of yours, and get them to put a sign in their yard and to write letters to the editor about you in a positive way later in the election. Also, anybody that's thinking about running, one of the strategies that I used that worked very well was I drove around to every street in the city of Kent over a period of 4 weekends. Wrote down, this is October of 2000 during the presidential election, wrote down the address of every single house that had a political sign in their yard, because those are the people that are politically active in those neighborhoods. Those are the people that their neighbors go to find out who to vote for. And so in January of last year, I started going out doorbelling, and I doorbelled only the people who had those yard signs and only the people who had written letters to the editor. And let me step back, because in Washington State, and I'm sure it's the same here, there are a couple of ways to get on the ballot. One of them is to pay a filing fee. and the other is to collect signatures. And I would encourage you in this, the strongest way that I can, that collecting signatures is a wonderful way to create rapport with people at their door. I would go to somebody's house, knock on their door and say, hello, my name is Bruce White, I'm running for Kent City Council. I wonder if you'd be kind enough to sign my petition to get my name on the ballot for the upcoming election. And 95% of the people said sure, without asking another question. As they're filling that form out, you can ask them questions, to build that rapport. Like, I noticed you were supporting President Bush in the last election. Oh, you noticed that, did you? And it doesn't matter who the candidate was. If you know anything about the candidate, you will know what the hot button issues of that person most probably are. So if they're supporting Bush, I would talk about the level of tax, property taxation in the city, and really get on their good side. And if you've ever run for office and you've doorbelled, you know that part of that process is that when somebody opens the door and you have an opportunity to talk to them, that's usually the only person that you can talk to. However, with the petition, you can ask, are there any other registered voters in your house? Would they be willing to sign also? And so more often than not, what would happen would be, the wife would be at the door and she'd say, hey honey, please come here. And he would come up to the door and she would introduce me. This is Bruce White. He's running for Kent City Council. He agrees with us. Sign this petition for him. So, and grandma or, any voting age kids, I'd get them all. And, which was great. And before I would leave, I would say, hey, later this summer, can I put a sign in your yard? And again, 95% of the people would say yes. And as a result, at the end of June, I was able to put up over 500 signs in private yards over a weekend in every single neighborhood in the entire city, which was phenomenal in terms of my effectiveness in doorbelling the remaining part of the neighborhood. Because remember, I was just going to those people that had those signs up earlier. So as I would go and doorbell the neighborhoods, people would, when I would tell them who I was, they would say, "Oh, you're the guy." So already they're open to wanting to talk to me or feel as though they know something about me already because their neighbor George is supporting me with with a yard sign. Raising money. That's probably one of the most difficult things about running a race, but you've really got to start early with that too, because unless you can show that you have the ability to raise money, people will not give you any. And so starting out in those early days, a year or more ahead of time, getting money from relatives, and just don't be afraid to ask people. Because what I found out that more often than not, if I got them on their side, they would write me a check. It may only have been $25, but it gave me the track record to show larger donors that I had support in the community. When I went to the business owners, which sometimes it's hard to do if you're not an incumbent, because the city machine has a way of looking down upon businesses that aren't supporting incumbents. And that's another thing. If you're going to be running and you are a challenger, know going in that you're not going to get the endorsement of the newspaper, you're not going to get the endorsement of the Police Officers Association, you're not going to get the firemen, you're not going to get any of the unions. They will all actively work against you. And so know that going in so that you can strategize for that. Again, the firemen endorsed my opponent, and the firemen put out all the yard signs for the incumbents. But they put them all on the public right-of-way, whereas all of mine were on private property. And since they were putting them up for 5 candidates, they put all 5 yard signs in a row, which means that nobody read any of them as they were driving by. And since mine are on private property, he could not put any of his next to mine. And so, you know, that is a good strategy. Direct mail, another key part of my campaign. The reason that I raised a lot of money, and going back, historically, people have won city council races in my city for $10,000, and I decided in order to run an effective campaign against an incumbent, I was going to need to raise twice that. And so ultimately, I did raise $21,000. Payman mentioned that I put in $10,000 of my own money, which is not quite correct. I was able to raise all but $2,000 of it, which was quite a feat. But anyway, I was able to hire a professional direct mail company, which is something the city had never seen before, because the candidates heretofore had always made their own. So I paid a high-priced direct mail company in Utah to do my mailings, and they were extremely effective. Also, going back to finding supporters through doorbelling, and another strategy in terms of finding sign locations is that I also would doorbell people on major residential streets, whether they were registered to vote or not. I would go and knock on their door and ask if I could put a sign in their yard. I had one lady that said, well, you know, I asked her if you know, I asked for her vote after I gave her my little spiel at the door, and she says, well, I don't know. I'm going to have to read more about you before I can tell you whether I support you. And I said, well, that's okay. You mind if I put a sign in your yard? She said, oh, sure. She said, so make sure you ask. In fact, she said, well, you know, don't put it in the yard. Screw it to the fence. Someone will steal it otherwise. You know, so, but you know, she wasn't going to commit to voting for me. I'll bet she did. Anyway, so like I said, I was successful on election day. It was amazing how popular I became on election night. Several elected officials who had heretofore not really been interested in my campaign called me to congratulate me, to ask me if perhaps I was planning on running for mayor or state house or you know, some other higher level office. And I responded by basically saying that you know, how about you let me you know, perform an office, the office that I just won, and then, you know, maybe we can talk about mayor later. But again, you know, it's the whole problem that you have running against an incumbent and the campaign finance laws. People are afraid to support you in case you lose, because if you know, some business or some elected official who likes you supports you and you lose, then they have the problem with having to deal with the person that they didn't support, you know, and have a working relationship with them. But that's a whole other issue. But anyway, so another thing that I did early on that was very important while I was out talking to these people was asking them, what's important to you? You know, what are the issues in the city? And I found them to be different than what I thought they were. And so obviously that's what I ran my campaign on, which was the issues that were important to the voters. But if you don't go and ask, or, you know, pay a polling company to do it, you could end up talking about things that you know, nobody cares about. In my race, it happened to be traffic congestion was the #1 issue, the level of property taxation in the city, and city growth policy. And so knowing that, I was able to, and having gone to the council meetings, I was able to find, no one's called me this whole trip. Sorry about that. So anyway, so I was able to campaign on boondoggle projects that the city was doing in relation to the issues that people were concerned with. For example, the city took a $400,000 grant from the state, which had originally come from the federal government, which came with the strings attached that it had to be used for carpool lanes. So the city took the money and went about adding carpool lanes to 2 blocks of a surface street at a cost of $4.2 million. Which in my campaign literature I referred to them as the carpool lanes to nowhere. And what and I was able to shine a light on something that the city does all the time. You ask them, why did you take the money? It's because it was free. But when you ask them, but it cost $3.8 million to take the free money to do a project that you never would have done in the first place had you not taken it, because it doesn't make any sense, and you're telling me it doesn't make any sense, but the only reason you're doing it is because the federal government's making you. So using a little logic in a way that people can understand is effective. Again, I used the free money comment to show that the incumbent didn't feel the feel the pain of the voters when it came to their property taxes. Again, also I found while I was out campaigning, I knocked on the door of a nice elderly lady, and she invited me in. Again, I should mention, when you go out doorbelling, people are very nice, and they fed me a lot. So this old lady, and it was a warm afternoon. She invited me in and offered me a soda, and I sat down, and she sat down, and just all of a sudden she started to cry. And I asked her what was wrong, and she said, I'm having to sell my house because I can't afford my property taxes anymore, and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And then she went on to tell me that how much she enjoyed her yard and her garden, and that's what she lived for, and what was she going to do? And so I was able to use her to put a face on the property tax issue and the continued increases that the city council was adding every year. And she appeared with me in a lot of my campaign literature. She became my biggest supporter when I and a couple of my friends were able to make up her shortfall in order to so that she could keep her house for at least another year.
You gotta stand nearer to it. Talk into it. They won't do that.
Okay. You learn something new every day. Okay.
Talk more directly into it.
How's this? Okay. So anyway, she was heavily involved in her church, and so she campaigned for me every weekend for several weeks. But doorbelling is the key. If you go to somebody's house and you talk to them, chances are that they're going to vote for you. But so now I'm in office, and I've been in office 2.5 months now, and I was talking to the Libertarian Party of Washington State, who had their convention 2 weeks ago, and I asked them what did they want me to talk about, and they said, well, just tell us what you've been able to accomplish in the last 2 months. And they said, well, you have accomplished something, haven't you? Surprisingly, I've been able to become pretty effective on the council, to my surprise. And I'll just go over a couple of the programs that have come up, and I've either been able to change the discussion on the issue, and maybe not be able to change the outcome, but to get people thinking in a different way. Or and there's also been things that I've actually been able to pass. One of the things that just happened last Tuesday, which I wasn't able to change the outcome, but I made the people that voted for it look kind of stupid, was there's something called a Flex Pass program that they were wanting to renew, that they had had it for a year, and a Flex Pass program gives free bus transportation to all the city employees. And the city staff came up to the microphone during the council meeting and sung the praise of the program and how great it was and why we needed to renew the contract. That we, as a result of having been part of this program for the last year, they've been able to reduce the single occupancy vehicle rate by 7%, and they said that was an excellent accomplishment. They couldn't have expected any better than that. And that the employees love it. And so, and then the mayor reiterated that that if it just freed up some city parking spaces, it was worth money. And it was about $40,000 is what the program cost. And so the mayor asked for a motion, and a motion was made, and he said, "Any discussion? All in favor?" And I said, "Well, hold on a second. I'd like to discuss this a little bit." I said. Basically that mass transit already is heavily subsidized by the taxpayers. In fact, in Washington State, it's been receiving a higher and higher percentage of that of the transportation dollar. And I said I thought it was inappropriate that the taxpayers of the city of Kent should pay the transportation costs of city employees to and from work. And I said, be that as it may, let's look at this program and what does it actually do. Let's look at these numbers. We have, of the 1,000 employees, 540 of them were eligible for this free bus ride program. I don't know how they figured that out, but that's what they tell us. 150 of them were using it. And if you take their 7% number, that was 38 employees who took the bus instead of driving their car. So I said, we are spending over $1,000 per employee to bribe them to take the bus. And I said, I think that is not a wise use of taxpayer funds. And I said, but let's dig even a little deeper than that. We had 112 of these employees who, before this program, were taking the bus anyway, and they thought that it was a good enough service that they were paying for, and along came the city and said, don't be a sap, let us pay for it. Let the taxpayers pay for it. You don't want to be paying for that. And I said, well, and let's dig even a little deeper. You're giving this program to 540 eligible employees. That's 400 of the employees that won't take it even if it's for free. So, and I fear that what's next is the appropriation of money to pay people to take the bus for free. And so I urged the other council members to vote against it. Well, that started a firestorm of discussion, mostly on tangent issues that had absolutely nothing to do with the subject at hand, like we need to protect the environment, and we need to keep down traffic. Pollution. We need to affect lowering the pollution rate, and I suggested that I didn't think 38 employees were going to make much effect on that. But ultimately, the vote came, and it passed 6-1, and I was the only dissenting vote. But after the meeting, one of the other council members, who is new just like I was, came to me and said, that made a lot of sense. This really isn't a very good program, is it? I said no. And she even went so far as to notice in the figures that the actual dollar amount that employees paid before this program was $4 per round trip, and that the price that King County Metro was giving was $1.31. And she asked, well, couldn't we just pass through that $1.31 cost directly to the employee as a pre-tax deduction on their payroll? And I said, well, no. And she said, well, why not? I said, well, you just voted to give it to him for free. So, so, so anyway, but she wants me to talk to her next time something like this comes up, so that before the meeting, so that you know, I can explain things to her, which I think is you know, a positive step. The second meeting I had in January, there was an issue that came up where the city staff was trying to modify or create an ordinance that restricted the public's ability to use the public records law in Washington, in that they wanted to make it more difficult for people to request public records, to have to come down, pick up a form, fill it out, and manually give it to them in person. And I suggested, I made an amendment to that, or suggested an amendment to it to require that the city be able to take public records requests over the internet on their internet page. And that ultimately ended up passing. I got a thumbs up from the editorial board in the paper. Actually, I've been in the paper a lot. I'm quite a novelty to the newspaper reporters. They've never seen anybody like me before. And also, I think it helps that I call them back every time they call me. And what makes me a novelty is they ask me what do I think about things, and I actually tell them. And another thing that I've been able to affect is Kent had a public market that was operating out on a parking lot in the city, and the city saw this market operating, and they thought to themselves, gee, why don't we take that over? I'll bet we can do a much better job. And so they bought a barn on a street that's very rarely traveled for $600,000, created a shell entity to manage the market, and then guaranteed a $700,000 bank loan to them so that they could fix up this barn. After spending $1.3 million on it, they leased it out to an organization called the Kent Downtown Partnership, who ran the market, and it went downhill from there to a point where they couldn't make their lease payments. So they came to the council, this is before I was on, and said, listen, you know, we're really appreciative that you had signed on this $700,000 bank loan, but you know, unless you give us a $4,000 a month subsidy, we're just going to have to default, and you wouldn't want that to happen, would you? So they ended up giving them a subsidy for a year and a half, which ended last December. And you know, they ran the place into the ground such that even that didn't keep them afloat. In fact, all it allowed them to do was propped them up in order to mismanage it for a longer period of time. But as the subsidy ran out, and after I had found out that they hadn't made a lease payment in 6 months, even though they'd taken the money, they came with a new business plan, which required that the city subsidize the market some more, and provide for money for a 2-year contract for a new market managing director. And they were going to turn it from a crafts market into a farmer's market. And they wanted to know, and this was before the council, and they wanted to know, what do you think about that? Wouldn't that be great? And I interjected. I thought that, so I said, so what you're essentially asking us to do here is to subsidize with tax money competitors for tax-paying businesses like these vegetable farmers that run their own stands down the street. Am I hearing this correctly? And you know, some other of the council members caught on to that, and as a result, the market is being closed down, and it's moving back to the parking lot where it was before. And eventually that building will be sold. We'll probably not make $1.3 million on it, because we're up in Washington. It actually gets cold in the wintertime there, but they didn't seem fit to want to put a furnace in it. So, you know, you know, not many people want to come and browse for crafts when it's 32 degrees inside. As we found out. I have only a few minutes left, but I've been most effective in my short tenure on the council in protecting property rights, as far as actually being the tie-breaking vote on zoning changes that come through. There's one that's coming up next month where the council is proposing to downzone a person's piece of property, and as part of that action is turning what is a piece of property that's worth about $12 million into something that would be worth about $800,000. And I seem to be one of a few people that think that that's wrong, and that if it's going to be done, that just compensation is required to be provided for the property owner in this instance. So I will be fighting for him on those grounds. I've got 1 minute left. So I guess in conclusion, I'm having a great time. You know, it sure is a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, but it's also a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. To actually be able to affect policy change at a local level, which is where you know, most of the policies that affect each and every one of you happen. I mean, in order for the federal government to appropriate money in order for it to be used, it has to be approved at the local level. So, for example, we could very well have rejected that $400,000, and I could have made a good argument for it that I think, you know, I think would have been accepted, because the electorate certainly did. And there will be many more of those type of issues to come, which I can hopefully affect a positive result with. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. So folks, you know, if you want to make a difference in a bigger way, Bruce just gave you an example. You can get involved with your local community and make things happen right there. And who knows where that's going to lead Bruce White. He could win state assembly, maybe even Congress from there. You don't know. You know, Ron Paul, people say, you know, people talk about Ron Paul. He was a freedom lover in Congress. He was and then ran as a Libertarian for a presidential candidate, and then back as a Libertarian, as a Republican. But he's making a difference, and you can make a difference, folks, at any level. Okay, but remember, it all starts from you. You know, you got to start with yourself, getting involved in your life to be free in others, and we can take it from there forward with you. Okay, let's take a 15-minute break right now. I have to say 4 o'clock and be back. And our last speaker will be, I know what many of you are looking forward to, Bob Schultz will let us know what the We the People Foundation has been up to and what is their plans to go forward and expose the fraud of the income tax.